Alright, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. Now, UFC 298 fight week is upon us, and I'm here to give my picks and a brief preview for every single fight on the card. We will start with the first fight of the night and work our way up. As usual, I try to go through some of these earlier fights a little bit faster so I can spend more time on the main event, the co-main event, and things like that. So let us get started right away with the first fight of the night, which is on the screen, Andrea Lee versus Miranda Maverick. Now, I will be going with Miranda Maverick in this one. I'll tell you what, I would be careful betting it, though. Last time, Miranda Maverick was a sizable favorite. She did end up getting upset by Jasmine Jasudavicius, who is a rangier girl, at least in comparison to Miranda Maverick, and as is Andrea Lee. Now, Andrea Lee, on the other hand, 3-fight skid, lost to Natalia Silva, Macy Barber, which I kind of thought she maybe should have gotten the nod in that one, but it doesn't matter, and Araujo, okay? So she hasn't been looking great. She's getting up there in age, and I don't think she's pretty good technically on the feet, but I don't think that she has enough pop on her shots to really get respect from Miranda Maverick and to get Miranda Maverick to stop or back off of some of the takedown attempts and things like that. So I do think that Miranda Maverick will get a unanimous decision victory by using her grappling. I don't know that she'll be able to finish Andrea Lee. Andrea Lee hasn't been finished a whole lot throughout her career. She's a tough girl to finish. Now, anyways, dude, moving up the card to Obon Elliott versus Val Woodburn. Now, I've picked Obon Elliott in this one, okay? Both these guys fairly inexperienced, although they do have an extensive amateur record, so it's not as inexperienced as their record would show. Val Woodburn, in my opinion, though, just, you know, he got brought in for the sole purpose of getting beat up by Bo Nickel, and he just didn't look great. The guy, prior to that, most of his wins are by knockout, and then he comes in here and gets knocked out by Bo Nickel, who, while he hits hard, doesn't have the best footwork in terms of striking, and is a little sloppy and sporadic at times on the feet. Maybe the threat of the takedown had something to do with it, but still, not a great look considering you were a striker coming into that match and you got starched by a wrestler. Do you know what I mean? The last guy he got finished over was 3-1. Also, by the way, you see a pretty significant drop-off in finishes, to be fair, from both of these guys, but as I said, I'm going to go with Obon Elliott here to get the job done in his debut. Okay, moving up the card to Josh Quinlan versus Danny Barlow. Another two relatively experienced young guys that are kind of new to the UFC. Josh Quinlan's gotten a finish in the UFC, but he lost his last one out. To be fair, that dude was like 6'5" with an 80-some-odd inch reach, or 77-inch reach. Like a tough guy for a welterweight to deal with, okay? I will be going with Josh Quinlan in this one, okay, because Danny Barlow, much like the previous opponent, dude has fought complete and total bums almost throughout his entire career up until the Contender Series finish that he got last time out. That guy, his record was 7-1, best record on his opponent's side by far. Otherwise, you see 5-5, 2-1, 1-0, 1-2, and shit like this. And while Josh Quinlan has fought some guys with pretty unexperienced records, they kind of go right in line with his level of experience. Also, none of them had losing records, okay? And that to me is a pretty good indicator for how they will perform against UFC level competition. So Quinlan will be at a pretty sizable reach disadvantage here, but I do think he's going to be able to get inside and land some of those big power shots because he does have pretty good power. And his last opponent, as I said, went to a decision with him, 6'5", 77-inch reach. That is a tough guy for almost any welterweight to deal with, all right? So anyways, dude, moving up the card to Zhang Mingyang versus Brenson Ribeiro. All right, Zhang Mingyang has a dope fucking nickname, the Mountain Tiger. I'll just say that. But he won a fight on the road to the UFC, ground and pound TKO. Now, much like the previous guy that I just spoke about, this is a theme, dude. With these young guys coming off this show, the road to the UFC, the Contender Series, and things like that, you see that they have like almost padded records, right? Like their opponents are dog shit. Okay, and that's what you see from Zhang Mingyang. Now, the guy that he beat on road to the UFC was 7-2, but as I said, that was the best opponent that he had fought, right? Otherwise, you see some pretty horrific records on the side of his opponents. Now, also something to keep in mind, this guy's 25 years old. He's got 24 pro fights. That's fucking insane, okay? That's a lot of experience for professional MMA, right? Like, you'll see shit like this in Muay Thai, even, you know, times 10 the amount of fights, but for a 25-year-old guy to have 24 pro fights, that's pretty extensive. He hasn't lost since 2019, so we're coming up on 5 years, which is a good look. Now, one thing that concerns me, guy's been KO'd 3 times, okay, and he's been subbed twice. He's never won a decision, so gas tank might be a bit of an issue, and he is quite finishable, okay? So I'm going to go with Ribeiro here. He's got a ton of submissions, so I don't think he's just going to get completely fucking steamrolled on the ground by Mingyang, sorry. Also, You know, to be fair, this is a very good matchmaking, in my opinion. It's very evenly matched. Both guys could realistically knock out each other. I'm pretty sure Ribeiro's been knocked out a couple of times as well. He's 6'1" with an 81-inch reach, dude. That's fucking insane. Massive ape index. And both of them, despite their age, have quite a bit of experience. But I am going to go with Brent Ribeiro to get the job done. I think he probably gets a TKO. Moving up the card, Rinya Nakamura versus Carlos Vera. Okay, now Rinya Nakamura, not like these other guys I've been talking about. In my opinion, has proved himself. He's won 2 straight in the UFC. He's gotten a finish in his debut. Almost all finishes on his record. Undefeated and fought pretty good competition relative to how young he is in his career. Carlos Vera, guy's like a decade older, late 30s at bantamweight, which is not a good look. Lost to Brad Katona on Tough, who is really the only recognizable name on his record, in my opinion. That guy's not even UFC comp level, like, at all. I think that he can win all these fights on Tough, and he can't get a win in the UFC to save his life. Rinya Nakamura also, you know, Carlos Vera's got a lot of submissions on his record. I don't think Nakamura's going to get steamrolled on the ground. The guy's got a key lock. It's his only submission on his record, but that's a pretty advanced and niche submission to be getting when you're not a guy that likes to engage in submission grappling a whole lot. He's younger, more powerful, as I said, in my opinion, has actually proved himself against UFC level competition, whereas Carlos Vera's UFC level competition was Brad Katona, who isn't really, okay? So I'm going to go with Rinya Nakamura to get the job done. Maybe by TKO. Carlos Vera has never been finished due to strikes, but he is getting up there in age, so maybe we will start to see it. Moving up the card. 2, Marcos Rogerio de Lima versus Justin Tafa. Now, I am going to be picking the underdog here. I'm going to go with Justin Tafa. He's a much better striker, in my opinion, than Marcos Rogerio de Lima. He's powerful to boot, okay? He's not going to lose via leg kick like we kind of saw Rogerio de Lima do to Waldo Cortez Acosta, because Justin Tafa's brother was a glory kickboxer. I'm sure he spent a lot of time in the gym kicking legs, checking leg kicks, and things like that. The guy is not just going to get his legs torn to fucking shreds. It's not like he hasn't seen that before. Do you know what I mean? So, Rogerio de Lima, I feel like his path to victory, his best path, I just lisped, dude. His best path to victory is getting a takedown and fishing for a sub, which he's not really an ace on the ground. It's not like if Marcos Rogerio de Lima gets you on the ground that's it, it's finished, right? Because he's been submitted more times than he has submitted his opponents. So I do think that Justin Tafa will be able to land a big shot upon Marcos Rogerio de Lima, trying to close the distance on him to try to shoot a takedown, because I don't think in the stand-up Rogerio is going to have the best time of it. So I do predict a Justin Tafa knockout. Moving up the card, to Amanda Lemos versus Mackenzie Dern. This one's tough for me a little bit, okay? Mackenzie Dern's a slight underdog. Now, the problem with Mackenzie Dern is, for me, is that she's all of a sudden decided that she can strike, but she can't. Do you know what I mean? Her chin is always up in the air. And you can't be doing that against Amanda Lemos, right? We learned against Jessica Andrade you can't do that. If you're getting out-techniqued by Jessica Andrade on the feet, not a great look. I know she's powerful and she's got a big overhand right and what have you, but she's not the most technical striker of all. Do you know what I mean? So, I'm a little concerned for Mackenzie Dern in this regard. And also, Amanda Lemos, while we watched her get completely controlled by Zhang Weili for essentially 25 minutes, Zhang Weili and Jessica Andrade are the only 2 girls that she's lost to in the last, 5 fucking years, okay? And Mackenzie Dern is not the kind of takedown artist that Zhang Weili is. Zhang Weili's takedown accuracy is 50%. Mackenzie Dern's is 14, okay? So I don't even know if Mackenzie Dern's going to be able to get Amanda Lemos down. Not to mention, Amanda Lemos is going to be expecting the takedown, I would imagine, unless Mackenzie Dern decides once again that she's some high-level striker with her chin straight up in the fucking air. I do think Amanda Lemos gets the job done. I think she's going to be able to do more damage in between, or in the rounds, to at the very least get herself a unanimous decision. Moving up the card to Anthony Hernandez, Fluffy, versus Roman Kopylov. This fight I'm extremely excited for. Roman Kopylov might be my favorite striker to watch compete in the UFC, maybe ever. Unbelievable. But I am a little concerned for him. Now, this is a pretty big step up in competition, in my opinion, but he has looked phenomenal in his last 4 straight finishes, head kicks, liver shots. So dude's got a wide variety of shit he can throw at you, and he mixes it up quite well. And also, we've seen that he has definitely improved his takedown defense, right? Because it's not like all of his opponents don't try to take him down. In my opinion, though, Anthony Hernandez is very underrated. The only thing that I question is the inactivity, right? And about 4 fights in 3 years, or a little over 3 years, which is not a whole lot of activity from a guy that's not that old. Now, a problem I see for Kopylov is Hernandez does average 7 takedowns a fight, right? 57% hit rate. Dude's got 6 takedowns against Shabazian, 8 against Marc-Andre Barriault, 8 against Josh Fremd. Of course, he subbed Adolfo Vieira, which is impressive. Now, somebody, if you go back a little earlier in his career, so this is a good while ago, but still worth noting, he couldn't take down Kevin Holland, and he ended up getting finished, right? And Kevin Holland not only has poor takedown defense, he was very small at middleweight, right? He was getting ragdolled by a lot of these guys like Vittori and Brunson and shit like that, so it's a little odd to see that. Now, I could see Kopylov being able to get a finish here, but I think that Hernandez is more likely to get Roman Kopylov down than any of Roman Kopylov's previous opponents, or at least in this current win streak. However, Roman Kopylov has the best takedown defense out of anybody that Anthony Hernandez has fought. 92%, okay? And considering the amount of attempts we see from Fluffy, there are a lot of opportunities for Roman Kopylov to land some big shit, and I would imagine that he is going to be more than expecting a takedown from Anthony Hernandez. So he's probably been working shit up the middle, knees, uppercuts, things like this. He is very, very, very good at range management, so I don't think he's going to overextend himself, and, you know, then we see Anthony Hernandez duck under something and get a shot. Also, if Hernandez is hesitant because he fears what could potentially come back his way if he were to shoot on a takedown, then there's a lot of openings there as well. So I am going to go with Roman Kopylov here, maybe a little bit biased, and I would not be surprised at all if Anthony Hernandez was able to get this one done. The guy's a very talented grappler. As I said, crazy output in terms of takedowns, and he usually gets down pretty much every opponent that he faces. I just think that Roman Kopylov, if you look statistically speaking, best takedown defense against compared to any guy that Hernandez has fought. Striking is fucking leagues above anybody that Hernandez has fought, and I think that when you've only got one way, like you have to take a guy down and you have to do this to win a fight, I feel like it puts a lot of pressure on you. He'll either be hesitant or he'll panic shoot or something like that, especially when you factor in the inexperience, or not inexperience, pardon me, the inactivity, maybe a little bit of ring rust, you know what I mean? Moving up the card to Merab Dvalishvili versus Henry Cejudo. All right, dude, I bet you there's a bunch of people that are going to say this is a casual pick, but I was pretty torn on this for the last week or so. I think I'm going to go Henry Cejudo, who is a slight underdog, right? Very good takedown defense, like very, very good takedown defense. And Merab's takedown accuracy is 36%, right? He fails the vast majority of his takedowns, okay? And while Cejudo's striking against Aljamain Sterling did not look great, in my opinion, I thought it was going to look a hell of a lot better. It looks much better when he is facing somebody that is like closer in size and stature to him, right? Doesn't have a massive fucking 8-inch reach advantage or whatever it was that Aljamain had. So I think that his striking is going to look a little bit better here, right? Merab's not much taller, and their reach is near the same. Aljo, massive reach advantage, height advantage, and it was a close fight, man. Henry Cejudo went pretty tooth and nail with the reigning champion who had been active, and Henry Cejudo was coming off of a pretty big layoff, right? Now, Merab's output could potentially stifle Henry Cejudo, but I think that Cejudo should be able to out-scramble Merab, so I don't know that he's going to be fearing or like anticipating and waiting for the shot in the same way that Petr Yan was, right? Where Petr Yan's offense essentially got stifled because he was waiting constantly for Merab to shoot, and he didn't want to go and overextend himself and then actually get taken down. Whereas Cejudo, I think, will be fairly confident in his ability to scramble with Merab if Merab does shoot for a takedown, and on the feet, I don't think it's a hot take to say Henry Cejudo's striking is much better. And I feel like, honestly, I know this is a fantastical what-if scenario, but if you were to make Aljamain Sterling Henry Cejudo's size, I think Henry Cejudo would have beat him. Do you know what I mean? I feel like Aljamain won some of those grappling exchanges, was able to get him down in some of those instances, basically because of the size. I feel like the skill was almost, you know, even-ish, but then the size really put Aljo ahead of him. Now, I know Merab's cardio is insane, and he weaponizes it and what have you, but if you look at skill for skill, I just think Cejudo's more skilled than Merab Dvalishvili, okay? Also, Cejudo's not as slow of a starter as Petr Yan is. We've seen him fucking out the gate, guns a-blazing in multiple fights, you know what I mean? So, aside from the Aljo split decision, hasn't lost since, 2016. Like, I know he took a good chunk of time off, but still. And also, Henry Cejudo, something else he's able to do is make adjustments on the fly and kind of switch up a game plan like we saw against Marlon Moraes, obviously, and things like that. So, I do think Cejudo should be able to get this one done. I don't think it's going to be an overly exciting affair because I think we will see Merab do what he usually does. But I just think that striking-wise, there's more openings for Cejudo without having to get past so many weapons, whereas Aljo's got those front kicks, the leg kicks, and he's very long, so it's hard to get past all that. Merab, in my opinion, is not that. Anyways, dude, So I'm going to go with CEJUDO. I think he gets the job done. Unanimous decision, like 29-28. A close competitive fight. Anyways, moving up the card. Jeff Neal versus Ian Garry, dude. Okay. Ain't no way, dude. Ian Garry's a minus 245. This is the problem I have with Ian Garry fight nights or the nights that Ian Garry fights. Oftentimes I do want to pick him, and I do pick him, except for this fight I'm not going to, but I have picked him in his other victories. But the problem is that I'm always like, man, minus 350. Like, I'm not ready to be, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know that I would want to bet on that, but either way, Jeff Neal, in my opinion, very underrated. He's like the Michael Johnson of welterweight almost. Do you know what I mean? He went to a fucking war with Shavkat Rakhmonov, but then lost to Neil Magny back in 2021, which is just, it's an odd look. But either way, Jeff Neal's boxing is very, very good in my opinion. Really good power, good left hooks, good right hooks, which will be useful against Ian the vegan Magato Cherry, as we have seen him get cracked with left hooks multiple times. He's got a win over Bilal Luque. He finished Mike Perry brutally, went to the third round with Shavkat Rakhmonov, like by far gave Shavkat his toughest test to date. I know he missed weight for that fight, but still. Ian Magato Cherry, I'll admit, is a good striker. I don't think it's arguable, but there's something that I noticed watching his fights and looking at the numbers, the stats, right? His defense is not great, and I kind of talked about this in my live chat this morning. He does get hit, and while he hits way more than he absorbs, right? I think his strike differential is like double. If you look at his actual striking defense percentage, it is not very high. Like, if his opponents throw, they'll hit him. Or oftentimes they'll hit him. Whereas Ian Magato Cherry usually gets ahead on numbers just because of the output. Do you know what I mean? So, it's not like he's got this phenomenal defense. That strike differential number can be a little bit deceiving when you've got a guy that has so much output. But whenever his opponents throw back, I think it's like 60% of the time they seem to land. But yeah, he lands almost 7 strikes per minute. It's pretty fucking active. But we have seen him get clipped, right? We've seen him get hit by left hooks against almost every single opponent he's fought. We saw him get dropped by Sankanon early on in his UFC career. And if Jeff Neal cracks that itty-bitty little vegan head, it might fucking fly off. Do you know what I mean? Because I would imagine, well, whatever. Whereas Jeff Neal, he absorbs more than he dishes out, but his striking defense percentage is actually higher. So it's just an output issue for Jeff Neal. The exact opposite almost as Ian Magato Cherry. So something I would like to see from him is maybe pick up the pace a little bit, right? It appears as though... Never mind. I was going to say, it appears as though his defense is not as good because of that differential, but I already said that earlier on, so I don't need to fucking repeat myself, dude. Anyways, I'm going to pick Jeff Neal. As I said, I wouldn't feel comfortable betting on Ian Garry. I'm going to pretend I'm betting this so that I make a pick that I kind of got a gut feeling about. You know, Jeff Neal also, dude's got a fucking chin. Shavkat Rakhmonov hit him with some shit, dude. And I don't know, he's not going to be easy to just land like a clean head kick on. And I don't think that Ian Magato Cherry's hands are going to put Jeff Neal away. Okay, so I'm going to go with Jeff Neal with the upset victory here. I hope he makes weight so that there's no fucking questions about it. He's got a fucking, pardon me, dude, reach advantage. Because Ian the vegan, Magato Cherry don't have many shoulders. Do you know what I mean? Don't have the biggest shoulders. Either way, let's move up the card. Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa. Okay. I got to go with Robert Whittaker here, man. In my opinion, Paulo Costa, he's not nearly as skilled as DDP. I know people keep comparing. Well, we saw what happened with Whittaker last time with the blitz. Like, DDP got him. Yeah, DDP and Israel Adesanya are the only guys that have been able to get him. Do you know what I mean? That blitz works against Jared Cannonier. That blitz works against Marvin Vettori. That blitz works against Yoel Romero. Fucking Derek Brunson, Jacare Souza. Everybody, dude. And Paulo Costa, in my opinion, is not nearly as skilled as Dricus du Plessis. We've seen, here's the problem. We've seen what happens when Paulo Costa is dealing with somebody who's going to stand in front of him and feint. Paulo Costa fucking goes crazy. And he gets hit with shit, right? We saw it against Izzy. And at middleweight, Whittaker's never lost 2 in a row also. That's something else. And I think that he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. I think he knows he's going to have to get this one done. I think he's going to, you know, try to not get hit, hopefully, because he is a little bit chinny, obviously. And if Paulo Costa can start you, dude, then I don't know, because Paulo Costa doesn't have many one-punch knockouts on his record. They're mostly done by volume. But I do think that Whittaker is going to, it'll look like a typical Whittaker fight. I think he's going to stay on the outside, feint his way in, land shots, get out, and not get hit nearly as much as he hits him, man. Like, Paulo Costa's just shown me nothing in the last few years where I could feel confident picking him against a top-level middleweight. Honestly, dude. Went to a decision with an old Luke Rockhold. They both look sloppy as shit. I know they were in Salt Lake City. I don't fucking care, dude. They looked horrible. Before that, lost to Vettori when he came in. When Paulo Costa came in 20 pounds overweight, do you know what I mean? Vettori had to get told, hey, stop cutting weight. Like, there's just, you know, and the inactivity's crazy. He does appear to be in very good shape. I really hope he makes it to the fight, but there ain't no way I'm picking Paulo Costa at this stage. Do you know what I mean? If he goes out there and beats Robert Whittaker, maybe I'll start to rethink my stance about Paulo Costa a little bit. But as of right now, I wouldn't feel comfortable picking him to get the job done. All right, boys, we're at the main event. Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria. Now, I've been going back and forth on this pick since this fight was announced all last week. I was leaning Ilia Topuria. I'm going to break the mold. I know there's a lot of people in MMA YouTube picking Ilia Topuria to get the job done, and I know there's going to be people that, you know, shit on me for this pick or whatever. I know the age thing, I know all that shit. I'm going to go with Alexander Volkanovski, okay? I have to. When you look at their striking statistics, okay, Ilia Topuria has unbelievable striking defense. Like, it's insane. 67% or something like that. But then when you look at all of his opponents and who he's faced, none of them are as sophisticated a striker as Volkanovski. They don't use feints like Volkanovski. They don't mix things up like Volkanovski. Do you know what I mean? Like Josh Emmett, with all due respect, it's a lot easier to look like a matador against Josh Emmett than it would be against Alexander Volkanovski. Okay? Alexander Volkanovski, in my opinion, he's got a wider arsenal on the feet. He'll use the leg kicks to make you reset. His switch kick, underrated, very quick. He got it up against Chad Mendes. He's used it a few times in his fight. A lot of his kick attacks come off that lead leg, which can be deceptive at times, because most guys, when they're throwing leg kicks, they want to use the back leg because they want to get power into it. But Volk is basically using it to make you reset or to set other shit up, right? And then the hands and stuff like that start to come after the fact. I think that Volk is gonna. I don't think he's going to wash him. I don't think he's going to just go out there and completely beat the fucking shit out of Ilia Topuria. I think it will be a competitive fight. Something else, though, that we've seen from Volkanovski is he's got a phenomenal ability to switch up mid-fight, right? Like against Max Holloway in the second fight, we saw him get hurt in the first 2 rounds. He got dropped with a head kick there, which is something that he's pretty susceptible to be fair. Ilia Topuria is susceptible to head kicks as well, but the only thing is I don't see Topuria throwing a whole lot of head kicks, whereas Volk will, especially against a guy shorter, or, you know, not shorter, almost as tall as him, or almost as short as him. Man. I wanted to pick Topuria the whole time, but then my gut just keeps telling me to go Volk, right? Topuria is still a very young man, and honestly, dude, the Josh Emmett fight was impressive, obviously. Something to me that makes it a little less impressive is that Yair Rodriguez just fucking butchered Josh Emmett 4 months prior. He bodied Josh Emmett. He did essentially whatever the fuck he wanted to Josh Emmett in that fight. And then Topuria gets him 4 months later. And I remember at the time people were like, holy shit, is he coming back too quick? I remember that narrative being out there for Josh Emmett. And while Topuria, as I said, looked very impressive, completely dominated that fight, won every round in my opinion, still, dude, I don't know, man. I know that that's MMA math and it doesn't really work that way. Like, oh, he couldn't finish Josh Emmett and Yair Rodriguez finished Josh Emmett and then Volkanovski finished fucking Yair and whatever. That's not what I'm trying to say. But what I'm trying to say is that if I had seen Ilia Topuria fight somebody else after Josh Emmett, if I had seen Ilia Topuria fight Max Holloway and win, if I had seen him fight Yair Rodriguez and win, even fucking Brian Ortega, do you know what I mean? Or if he had to fight Movsar Evloev in order to get this shot or something along those lines, I would feel a lot more confident in picking in him. But he's going to be at a reach disadvantage. Literally nobody he has faced has striking even comparable to Volk. Like, honestly, let's take a look here. Let's see. Okay. Josh Emmett, right? Josh Emmett is not as sophisticated a striker as Alexander Volkanovski. It's not even fucking close, okay? Not even fucking close. He's got a big overhand right. He threw some leg kicks and whatever, right? Bryce Mitchell, horrible on the feet. Literally horrible. Jai Herbert is a good striker, and guess what? He dropped ELLIOT Topuria with a head kick. Do you know what I mean? Damon Jackson, Yusuf Zalal. None of these guys are top-level strikers the way that Alexander Volkanovski is. But you look at this number, 67% striking defense. The differential's not as high because ELLIOT Topuria is very patient and he's very disciplined in his defense. He'll have his hands up and he'll wait, right? And he'll wait for you to go and then he'll counter. And he's very, very disciplined in that regard. The only problem is that he's not had to fight somebody who's going to draw out reactions, draw out counters with feints the way that Alexander Volkanovski does. Josh Emmett's not feinting his way in to draw out your counter so he can counter your counter. He's just trying to feint a level change maybe to land an overhand right. Do you know what I mean? Not nearly as sophisticated. Whereas Volkanovski and the guys at City Kickboxing, and you know, this is one of the reasons why I almost picked against Volk here, is because City Kickboxing seems to be on a bit of a decline here. Seems to me like their system's kind of been figured out. I don't know that ELLIOT Topuria is going to change the way he fights to fight Alexander Volkanovski. Like, he kind of just fights the way he fights, and he's very, very good at it. He's very talented. I'm not trying to say he's not. I'm not trying to diminish his skills at all. I feel like ELLIOT Topuria could win. And honestly, I've never thought so hard in a featherweight matchup about picking against Volkanovski. Like, with Yair Rodriguez for a little bit, I thought maybe he could land a head kick or something, but not like this. Topuria, it does, you know, I could potentially see him winning, but I just for some reason think that Volk's going to get it done. I think that Topuria might have some success early on. You know, I think the first round will look very slow. Topuria is going to be making reads. Volk's going to be making reads. They'll be feinting, you know, whatever, leg kicks, shit like this. I think round 2 is where we could see Topuria have a bit of success based on making reads in the first round and things like that. And then I think 3, 4, 5, I think we start to see Volkanovski kind of take over, because he also has a very good ability to make reads, change shit up mid-fight, and what have you. Dude, for me, it is the level of competition, and I know that's shitty because you can absolutely watch an ELLIOT Topuria fight, even if it is against a Josh Emmett or Bryce Mitchell or what have you, and clearly see that this man is very, very skilled at what he does. I just don't know that Alexander Volkanovski is going to allow him to do that the way that Topuria was able to do it against Josh Emmett, Bryce Mitchell, Jai Herbert, and guys like this. And honestly, dude, Topuria does have crazy power. And I know that Volkanovski is coming off of a head kick loss to Islam Makhachev, right? That head kick has been there forever, right? Max Holloway landed it against him. Islam landed it in the first one partially and then landed it better in the second fight. You don't see Topuria throw a whole lot of head kicks. Maybe that's something he tries to mix in there, but man, it's just, you know, Volk's just not Josh Emmett. That's what it boils down to for me. As I said, if I'd seen ELLIOT Topuria fight somebody different, somebody higher ranked, you know, somebody who didn't get bodied by Yair Rodriguez 4 months prior, maybe I'd feel a little more confident in picking him. But I just think that, you know, in every fight so far, he's kind of been able to fight how he wants to fight. Something that Volkanovski is very good at is not allowing you to do that. Do you know what I mean? In the first 2 Max fights, he threw a combined total of landed a combined total of 140 fucking leg kicks, right? Which completely kind of screwed Max's offense up. And then in the third fight, he just stood exchange in the pocket with him and beat the shit out of him. Yair Rodriguez, you see him implement some grappling and shit like that, get that in Yair's mind, and then start to do work on the feet, hurt him on the feet. Like, he's just something about him, dude. And I know that he's older. I know that guys 35 and over, welterweight and below, 2-30, whatever the fucking title fights and shit like that. But Volkanovski, if there's a guy that can do it, it's Alexander Volkanovski. Do you know what I mean? So I think it'll be competitive. I think we could even potentially see a 48-47, maybe even a controversial decision. Who knows? But I don't think that Topuria is going to go out there and just starch him. I could be wrong. He could make me eat my fucking words. Honestly, it'd be pretty exciting if he did. You know what I mean? That would really shake things up at featherweight. I don't know that I want to see Movsar Evloev fight Volkanovski after this if he were to win. But regardless, dude. Anyways, that's been my picks, okay? For all of UFC 298, I would greatly appreciate you listening. Like and subscribe. I will see you at the next video. Bye-bye.